Well, on today's show, I have AV Super Sunshine. He's going to talk about his new single, Candyland, and hopefully we'll talk about some other things such as classic rock, alien abduction, and, I don't know, maybe even Donovan. So, welcome to the show.
Well, good afternoon. It's great to be here.
Hey, I had to throw out Donovan because when I first heard your name, I thought of that old Donovan song, Sunshine Superman.
That's a great song.
Now,
It's a classic for psychedelic classic rock, as far as being on the pop side.
and that reminds me of you because your music, besides modern rock or classic rock, modern dance, you also have, I would say, kind of a psychedelic kind of feel to it.
Well, that is definitely you hit that on the head. Very psychedelic. I enjoy colors and images and sounds, and big Jimi Hendrix fan.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to blow your horn here for a sec. On YouTube, on one of your videos, you've got a great description, so I'm going to read it and you tell me how close it is to you, the truth of AV Super Sunshine. It basically says, you are crafting an idiosyncratic sonic universe where classic rock and contemporary dance music share equal space. A holistic hybrid approach that reimagines psychedelia, art rock, glam, R&B, pop, and experimental electronica into an innovative sound all his own. Those are some pretty big shoes to fill there.
Actually, I'm quite lucky because I can mix all of those together, and I'm not pegged to a specific sound. It gives me a lot of freedom.
Well, that's one thing I think that makes your work stand out is that you're not trapped in a box. It sounds like from song to song, if you want to veer into another genre, you seem free to do that.
Correct, yes. And fortunately, all the genres, there's not really a lot of new genres, but there's a lot of genres that can be blended together today and come up with new sounds.
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that people always talk about with modern music that, if you go on YouTube, they go, oh, I wish I had grown up in the 70s. The music was so good. Oh, I wish I was, growing up in the 60s. Do you ever feel that way, like there's not the kind of modern music you like, so you're making it yourself? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as an artist, I wish it was the 70s because it was a lot easier to succeed back then. Today it's a lot harder because there's so many distractions, and music isn't as valuable as it was in the 70s. If you know what I mean, it defined lifestyles, and it people back then they had to go buy the record if they wanted to hear it. Where today things are streamed and they're maybe not valued as much.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you were, growing up and listening to music, 60s and 70s, 80s, what were the top bands that influenced you?
Well, I started out listening to hard rock, like Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and then that morphed into new wave and punk rock. I would say that I was very young when punk rock hit, and it didn't get a lot of attention when it hit the U.S., but new wave did, and then through new wave, then you discovered bands like The Clash, who had their roots in punk rock, and you found out about the Sex Pistols, after they happened. So The Clash was a big influence. I liked their songwriting style at the time because there was an honesty and sarcasm at the same time. I liked Frank Zappa at the time too, even though he was more classic rock. I kind of liked that kind of stuff. But then when I started getting a little bit older, the '80s hit, and started appreciating music. I liked some of the bands in the '80s a lot. I listened to some U2. I liked Echo and the Bunnymen. I thought they were really cool. What they were doing at the time. And I liked what David Bowie was doing at the time, and so he was being able. I guess if you compared me to another artist, I would say, boy, maybe like Bowie. Bowie was always changing. He was setting trends, kind of as ahead of the time. I'm not like that, unfortunately, unless if I am setting trends and I don't know it. But that was a big influence. How he could go from a rock sound to a ballad, and then he's inventing new wave and stuff like that. So I enjoyed.
I definitely see that influence in your music, and not just in the songs, but Bowie was so visual, and it sounds like you've really embraced music videos and your visuals there.
Right, and then it's about the same time. We're talking about the early '80s. Late '70s, when I first started listening to music as a kid, I got into a lot of funk too. Parliament, I liked them a lot. So, and it was, I think Bowie maybe steered me into that because he had a lot of really cool artists. Well, Nile Rodgers, he's still doing great stuff. Like a few years ago with the Daft Punk, so. It was a good time because you could go to when I hit drinking age, you could go to the clubs and they would play every kind of music and people would dance to it. They would play everything from hair metal to Rick James to the latest new wave, and everybody would dance.
Those were good times. The Super Freak era, Rick James, those were great. Well, one thing I was really curious, you've got all these influences and you've kind of let them simmer for a few decades. Because you didn't really, it sounds like, really break out and do your first records until fairly recently.
About 2013 I started recording. I was running an open mic in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, of all places. But it's a cool coffee shop. If anybody gets to Oshkosh, it's the New Moon Cafe, and they've got a Tuesday night open night mic, which I was running for a few years. Really kind of built it up. I had a lot of kids. There's a big park across the street with a lot of high school kids. And I thought, well, let's get them over here. And then you get them over there, and then you got a whole new mess. How do I keep them quiet and under control? So I got a lot of them playing instruments and all that. But I learned with my songwriting real quick, because I'd always open with 4 or 5 songs, and then I'd play throughout the night. If they were noisy, then I wasn't hitting them. So I was writing songs, trying to figure out what they liked, as far as lyrical content, the way rhymes are constructed, as well as the music, and that was a big help. And from there, I was invited down to Indiana. There's a big music merchandiser called Sweetwater, and they had just built a brand new recording studio, and they found out what I was doing, and they invited me then to record, and they brought up some cats from Nashville, including Johnny Cash's old guitar player, his lead guitar player, a guy by the name of Kerry Marks. He also played for a number of artists before Johnny, but we made a classic rock record, and there was a drummer from a band called RPM, which was late 70s, early 80s classic rock, and then the bass player was he was an older guy. He was from Sam Sham and the Pharaohs, I think. But they did that song Wooly Bully. He's the guy who played on Wooly Bully. Wooly Bully.
Oh, wow. Wow, so you have a talent for attracting some pretty top-notch talent.
Yeah, so that was a really learning experience, working with those guys, and that record is still not out, believe it or not. I've got it recorded and mastered, but I haven't put it out. And from there, I was invited down to Nashville to record. Obviously, some cats from Nashville, and I recorded down at Ben Folds had a studio at that time. It was the big studio that you tour to see where Elvis recorded is RCA Victor Studio B. Well, he bought Studio A, which is right next door, which is also where Elvis recorded. The difference between the two studios is Studio A had a live room that you could put an orchestra in. And so like the Monkees recorded Daydream Believer there and stuff like that. So it's a real cool studio. So I went down there and recorded, and the band that was put around me had a drummer from Ryan Adams, a guy by the name of Brad Pemberton, great drummer, really good percussionist. We had Ben has a guy who plays for him, Andrew Higley, a real good keyboard player. Ben lent us all his good keyboards, his B3 and his Leslie and his best grand piano, and then Joe Costa, who does the miking for Ben, knew how to mic all those instruments and get the sound. And then James House was the producer. He was a big country songwriter in the 90s. He wrote Broken Wing for Martina McBride, which was a huge song. And he brought in a bass player from L.A., Michael Bradford, to play bass on it. And Michael is the cat who discovered Kid Rock and put him on the road. He also discovered Uncle Kracker and co-wrote the record, his record, and went on the road with him. And believe it or not, Deep Purple liked the Uncle Kracker record, so they hired Michael for 2 years. He produced and co-wrote 2 records with Deep Purple and toured with them. And then from there, he works now with Dave Stewart of the Eurythmics, as well as Richie Sambora of Bon Jovi and myself. So that's where I met Michael. And after those 2 records, we made 2 records down there. One is out called Baby Goodbye, and the other one is called Candyland. And Candyland turned out to be a really great record, and Michael wanted to do some dance remixes. That's a whole other story, how we got into dance remixes, but at any rate, there's
well, let me say I've been listening to Candyland, and I love it. It's a great tune. But I would say for people, too, Baby Goodbye, which was earlier, you have a great video to that. So I'd encourage people, check out your YouTube page, because you can hear all those influences in these songs. I mean, Baby Goodbye, it sounds like you had some chart play, like you had some success right off the bat with that.
Yeah, we went out to the being an independent artist, you can't really service commercial radio and get any attention. Because commercial radio is primarily owned by a group of record companies, and it's really competitive, and it's about promoting what the record companies are sinking money into. I understand it completely. But there is opportunities on non-com and college radio. Keep in mind there's lots of radio stations that play like 90s music and 80s music and 70s music. They don't play new music, but the ones that will, it's the college and the indie stations. And we went out and promoted there, and we had real good success. But it's hard because the stations don't, a lot of them don't have a lot of power, and it's a hard market to break in the U.S. on radio. So, but we did that. Baby Goodbye was one of the first records we put out. And
congratulations. Like you said, that's a big feat to get noticed. So sounds like you're very savvy in targeting those stations.
Oh yeah, we've had quite a few top 100 songs on the college charts. We also, when Baby Goodbye came out, we made a single and we sent it out to record stores, and it was a cool single. We charted on the Billboard single sales chart, which was I think they've discontinued that because nobody's doing singles anymore. But that was kind of fun. But because of Baby Goodbye and servicing the college markets, I was like, me and Michael were talking it out, and we said, well, let's do a like a hip hop version of Baby Goodbye. So there's actually 3 videos. One is the one that's the classic rock song with the full band, everything's mic'd, everybody's playing an instrument. Then we did this hip hop track, and we did a video for that, and it ended up on the world dance charts in the crossover club charts. So it got a whole bunch of club play, and one of the big music pools put up a page for me, which was really nice, and the DJs could sound off, and we had all these DJs coming in. And one of the first guys was a guy by the name of Calvin Harris, he's really popular. His last record went to #1, and Calvin chimes in and he's like, "I want to hear a house version of this song," you know. So this is how we got into dance music. So I'm like, "Well, he's a big guy, you know." And then the pool director called me and said, "Yeah, it's really Calvin. He wants to hear one." So Michael went out and made a dance remix of the song. So that's the 3rd Baby Goodbye video that's out there, and that debuted on the dance charts at #2 because of all the buzz we were getting on.
And now, which song was that?
That was Baby Goodbye on YouTube.
So that was a dance remix of Baby Goodbye.
Yeah, so there's actually 3 videos of Baby Goodbye when they get to YouTube. There's a hip hop version, and then the classic rock version, and the dance version. And all the videos were done by different guys, but they used some of the same footage.
One thing I want to talk about, since we're on the dance music side, I'm glad you brought that up. You have one song which I love. It's called "I Am Alien," and you just go flat out modern electronica on it, but also with, I would almost call it a vintage, like Giorgio Moroder kind of synthesizer sound.
Yeah, that is from a record that we did between. We're launching Candyland and remixes right now, but after we did the Baby Goodbye, I did a record with Michael called Bass Face. We just wanted to do a record together with electronic stuff, and that was one of the tracks, "I Am Alien." It's going to be used in. You mentioned Alien Abduction. We're making a film. It's being edited right now out in L.A. Called Alien Abduction. It's going to be an hour film that we're hoping to get on PBS and maybe HBO.
Right. And there's a trailer of that on your YouTube channel I encourage people to watch. And what struck me is you use mannequins very creatively in that.
That's the trailer that I used to find an editor for the film. A new trailer is coming up fairly shortly, within a few weeks. But yeah, that was a trailer.
So the full movie, is this something you're acting in and writing songs for? What's the whole concept for this?
Well, if you want to hear, if your listeners want to hear the "I Am Alien" track, there are a couple versions of it up already. If they look on Spotify under the latest record, which is called Candyland Remixes Volume 1, there's 2 versions of that track. And then there's also an EP that's out called Just Like Kurt, and there's an early version of that track, and then we've got another 2 more versions coming out. So there's multiple versions of that song. What happened was, after we started in 2014, we did some live band videos. I wanted to take the studio band that I had in Nashville on the road. So we, to get that done, we had to make some live video, so people could see us, the promoters. And we did a couple of songs down in Nashville at the Sarah Performance Center. A couple of those live videos are up on the YouTube channel. There's one called The Theme Song, and there's another one called Sink or Swim. And when we were filming those, we did the Alien Abduction song live too, which I don't have up because we're waiting to launch the movie. But the guy who did the video of the live performance was like, I'd like to do a music video of that song. So he set things up out in L.A. We rented this film ranch that everybody uses, from Beyonce to TV shows like Full House remake. It's like, oh, there's that film ranch again, because we filmed there for a few days. And we rented those mannequins. Do you remember the movie The Hills Have Eyes?
Oh yes.
So they were in
Wes
that
Craven.
movie. Yeah, and then they were also in. There was a Indiana Jones movie, The Crystal Skull, I think it's called, where they do this nuclear test, and the aliens were from that, or the mannequins were from that movie. So they had to rent those specific mannequins. They were really expensive, but they got like the painted on eyes and stuff, and the facial features, which are cool. And they brought out all these guys to film. And then when we got there, the filmmaker's like, "No, we're making a movie, man." So coincidentally, I'd had a rough storyline for an alien abduction film, and so I wrote up a bunch of stuff after we filmed it, and then that particular filmmaker got sick and couldn't finish the film. So I made that trailer, and I found a guy out in L.A. in Beverly Hills, Jared Segal. He's a really good filmmaker, and he's made a bunch of the videos for us too, the music videos. You can see in the credits which ones he's made. But
Well, I want to compliment you and say the video looks great. I mean, you really know what you're doing. We're going to wrap up in a little bit, but before we do, I want to make sure that people can find these videos in your website and where to buy your music online. So where are the best places for people to find all this stuff we've been talking about?
Well, the easiest way is just type into Google AV Super Sunshine, AV being my initials together, AV space Super space Sunshine, and there's a lot of stuff that comes up right there. Google does a pretty good job of, they put up that music artist page for you, and it's one of the first things that comes up, and all the links are right there. Everything from Spotify to iTunes to all the different streaming services like Deezer and things like that. And then
Cool.
Google Play, of course, you can buy and play music from, but also iTunes you can buy the MP3s from. And physical CDs, some of them are available on our website, but the newer ones I haven't made available yet. I'm trying to streamline my distribution right now, being an indie guy.
Well, excellent, and I highly recommend people, start off with the YouTube videos because, to see you and hear you is the best package. Your videos are really cool. But one thing I'd like to wrap up with, you have a very inspiring story. So many people say, oh, I want to do music, but they keep putting it off and never do it. So what would you say to people, like, what was the magic with AV Super Sunshine? What kind of nudged you over that hump and actually got you to do all this?
I was fooled. Well, when I was invited down to Nashville to record, because I had written lots and lots of songs, and I was the type that I would send them away to be critiqued, and then people would, they slash them up. Oh, this is terrible. That's horrible. And then I'd try to figure out, what don't they like? It took me for a long time to figure out it was the lyrics. The lyrics are the most important thing, because there's everybody can write a chord progression. But anyways, when I got down there, they're like, this could work as a band, And James, he took a song of mine called Super Sunshine Girl and took my initials AV and said, we could call you AV Super Sunshine. Right when I heard that, it like stuck. I said, I like that name. So they made it. At the time when I was recording, everybody made it sound so simple. Yeah, we'll put this out, and we'll put it out on the airwaves, and you'll be touring in no time. But
well, what is your secret? What is your secret for attracting all these?
I thought they were telling the truth. It was going to be easy, but it's hard. But I'm really glad I did it. This is what I do, and I got pushed into it, is a good way to say it.
Well, it sounds like you're very persuasive. Like you're good at persuading people to join in your dream. You know what I mean?
Well, I guess because it's exciting and it's a lot of fun, and people like to have some fun in life, you know. And then the brand really is to bring people together. When you listen to a lot of the songs, they're about overcoming and coming together, and so that's something I really try, is to have a message that could help people too.
Well, we got about 1 minute left, so I have to add, you've got this great song called "Just Like Kurt" about Kurt Cobain. Give us some final thoughts on, what inspired you to write a song about Kurt Cobain.
Well, I was about 10 years ago. I was diagnosed with PTSD and extreme anxiety disorder, and I was way up there on the top of the depression scale. And I just connected with Kurt. I always liked his music, but I never really knew him as an artist. And I got a book handed to me of all of his writings and stuff. It's a big red folder. They just took all of Kurt's writings and they just put them in a book. So looking through that, I started to understand how funny a guy he really was, and how sarcastic he was, and at the same time, what a crappy life that he went through, and how he was trying to get through it. So I related. It helped me overcome a lot of stuff.
Okay, favorite Nirvana song of all time?
Well, I mean, it sounds corny and lame, but I really like Teen Spirit. I think that is such a clever song. And I never get tired of listening to it. I know some people probably have heard it too many times, but.
Okay, last question. Favorite classic rock track of all time?
Oh God, it would be "A Whole Lot of Love" by Led Zeppelin. It's just got that riff. When I hear it live again, it sounds better in my head. You know how you remember stuff? It's always better. It's always huge. It's giant. And that's still good. But that's been.
Well, excellent choice. Hey, I want to thank you for spending the time with me today, chatting. I love your music, and I wish you the best of luck with Candyland.
No problem. To close, the Candyland track is a song of I was on an antidepressant, Prestique, and I went cold turkey from the drug. And when I went cold turkey, I needed something to do, so I wrote the song Candyland, which is about being on meds. So just so I throw that in there. So hopefully, when people hear the song, they'll be like, yeah, I get it, man.